Welcome back. All right, so it's January the 1st, and why not make some predictions? I don't think I've done predictions for a year before, and so I thought, wouldn't this be fun? And I'm keeping out some of the heavier topics. I will say that as an honorable mention with the heavier topic, I think there's a lot of people waiting for the 2018 Hockey Canada investigation to tell us which players were involved. I don't think we'll ever know. I think it's going to be a lot of cloak and dagger and a lot of we think this, we think that. Well, clearly it could be. I don't think we'll ever know. Criminal charges were never brought. I think it would be, um, uh, yeah, I don't think we'll ever know. I think that investigation is going to let a lot of people down when it's done. But I want to talk about 10 subjects that are not as heavy as that. I want to talk about, and I want to rank them in terms of the maybe most out there prediction to the most likely prediction. So we'll start off with number 10, which I have written different than I'm going to write it on the board. Because I think it's just two words: Flyers rebuild. I think they've been denying reality for a bit. It's interesting because they bring in John Tortorella, who the Canucks brought in when they were denying reality. I say that like they're not still denying reality. But at any rate, the Flyers have been in denial of reality for the last couple of seasons. I think that this year being a pretty close to a disaster, I think that's going to force reality to sink in when you have back-to-back really poor seasons. And whether that means a change of general manager, whether Tortorella sticks around, whatever happens, we'll see. But I do think that they're going to accept reality and the rebuild's going to happen in Philadelphia, which is be the best thing to happen, I think, to the franchise and really to the fan base. I think the fans just want some sense of a direction here and some idea of a plan going forward. And so far with the Flyers, that's just been missing. Number 9. Now, this wouldn't have seemed like it was a major prediction as recently as a year ago. Because, yeah, big names don't usually change teams. Johnny Gaudreau kind of changed that script a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And so I think Pastrnak stays in Boston. I'd be very surprised if he moves on from the Boston Bruins. Now, it's going to mean that there's going to have to be some give and take between himself and the Bruins in terms of whether it's the cap or whether it's the term. There's going to have to be some kind of a change in the way that this is done. But yeah, I think Pastrnak stays in Boston. And again, this wouldn't have seemed at all controversial, but yeah, with what we've seen recently, there is the possibility he moves on. But I do think, I do have faith that he'll decide my best home is in Boston and that he'll sign an extension. Maybe it ends up being a shorter term extension because of money reasons, but yeah, I think Boston keeps Pastrnak. Next on the board, so the NHL had their board of governors meeting. Gary Bettman was very clear on this that, the salary cap, they're still expecting a $1 million increase. I think it's going to go up by more than that. I think he sat down at that meeting. I think he told them, hey, plan for 1 million, because the last time that they sat down at a board of governors meeting and said, hey, we're going to have a big increase was the 2019-2020 season. And I think there were general managers that had that increase baked in with some of the contracts they were signing, and then it didn't happen. Of course, we had everything get shut down, and everything was all closed up, and the league lost a bunch of money, and we ended up in this flat cap world that we've been in since. I think it's going to rise more than a million. I think they just want to make sure that they keep expectations down. You would much rather go to them when it's time to decide on what next year's cap's going to be and say, hey, so we decided to bump it up by 2 million, and make sure that it's a happy difference rather than telling them now, yeah, well, the salary cap could go up by 4 million, and then come back to them later on and go, actually, it's going to be a million. And of course, GMs will spend to the cap. So just tell them it's not going up by a lot. Make sure that all the expectations are low, and then I think they're actually going to get more than that. Number 7, and I don't know that this is likely on any level. Talked about this in a recent news video that the NHL was considering and looking at an 84-game schedule. I think it works. How many players don't play in the preseason? How many big names do we see maybe they appear in the final game of the preseason? And so teams are using the preseason to kind of figure out who's going to make it, who isn't. And there's a lot of talk about prospects and how they're doing and all that. I think an 84 game schedule combined with a shortened training camp and shortened preseason makes a lot of sense. Players are in shape year round now. You don't need as much time for them to get into game shape. And you can work things out where there's the earlier dates where you're sending guys down to the AHL and have some kind of an AHL preseason of some sort. If you're looking at which players are maybe ready and maybe not. I think an 84 game schedule makes a lot of sense. It balances things out. We could see a return to conference playoffs, but remember, the broadcasters didn't want that. The reason that the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, and all that went by the wayside is because you might only have a day or two to promote a matchup. And not only that, but you might get matchups that just aren't very appealing, right? So you might end up with matchups that there's no history there. The teams don't really play each other very often. You can sell a rivalry matchup between Pittsburgh and Washington at any time. You can sell a rivalry matchup between Montreal and Boston. Now, there's also, if they did go back to the conference playoffs, there'd have to be something for networks, I would think. But at any rate, I do think an 84 game schedule makes a lot of sense, and I don't think that you're going to have to convince the NHL too much that they need to make more money, because that's 2 more gate revenues per season for each team for the league. I think that just makes a lot of sense. And then you have 42 home games, 42 road games, rather than 41 home games, 41 road games. It evens things up nicely. So I do think they'll go to that sooner rather than later. We'll see if it's this coming season. Probably not, but that's why it's on the board. Number 6. So before the season started, I said I was taking Colorado to win their second straight Stanley Cup. Pittsburgh did it 2016, 2017. Tampa did it 2020, 2021. It's a little less crazy to suggest a team can win back-to-backs. But the reason that that's there with the ... is if I was making my picks today, I don't know that they'd be the same. The thing is, I don't like to change my predictions during the season, because then they'll change again, and then they don't have any meaning. So I'm still saying that Colorado versus the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final, Colorado winning it, that would be my prediction for the rest of this season. However, Boston has started making me a believer, and I don't appreciate it, because they've done it before and they've let me down every year except 2011, where they still kind of let me down because I was cheering for Vancouver, clearly. And they've made the final plenty of times and then just nope. But yeah, the reality is you've got Boston, you've got Carolina, you've got Tampa could very well end up coming back in there and winning a Stanley Cup. There's a lot of teams that right now you could make an argument for as potential Stanley Cup winners, and I love that. I think that level of uncertainty when it comes to who's going to win a championship is great. Although whenever that champion does get crowned, immediately fans come in with, well, we knew that was going to happen. Sure you did. The league had this set up. It was obvious in October. Sure it was. Yeah, sure it was. Number 5. So, I haven't been talking about what Bo Horvat's worth on the trade market. He's clearly having a career year. The numbers he's putting up right now are ridiculous. It's the same as JT Miller last year. JT Miller put up absolute career numbers last year and he got signed. And of course, that's the whole conversation in Vancouver. Miller's having a miserable season. He's not the only Canuck that's having one, but with that contract extension, definitely gets a lot of attention. But Horvat, I think when he gets traded, and I'm going to go ahead in this video and say he does get traded, that'll be the start of a rebuild. Whether they sell it as a rebuild or a retool, that's where this is headed, I think. And I mean, think about it this way for a second. Which player would get you more right now on the market, Miller or Horvat? Horvat would get you a lot more on the market. Last night on Hockey Night in Canada, I heard them say, it's odd to see a team considering trading their first-line center. I agree. However, do I think Horvat's going to be a 40 to 50 goal scorer throughout the rest of his career? Probably not. He's a very hardworking, good player. But it's interesting to me how Horvat at the start of the year, I saw a lot of Canuck fans talking about, Horvat's, he doesn't have any heart and he's not very good and he's slow out there. And then the goals started going in and now it's all, we love him and how in the world can you think about trading him? So it's a fickle group. And yeah, I think that will officially be the start of the rebuild. And I think that's why we're hearing things about how Pettersson's the only untouchable. Because they're going to have to go into a rebuild. Vancouver's never really committed to it, and at this point, as much as I like this core, and I will cheer for Horvat, I'll cheer for Besser, if Hughes got traded, I will cheer for all of the players from this core no matter where they go, because I really think that the team was composed wrong under Benning, and while Alvin's trying to fix it on the fly, it's kind of broken. And so I do think the Horvat trade would officially start the rebuild. I don't know that the Canucks fans are going to get a letter like Rangers fans did. Be nice if they did, but yeah, I think it's going to be the start. Sadly, the start of a rebuild. Number 4. Now, what would be crazier of the two of those? Okay. Now, currently, the Toronto Maple Leafs would play round 1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. How in the world could I take Toronto to knock out Tampa? Well, Tampa Bay's been in the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row. There's a lot of miles that you add to that. Players will tell you, how hard that is on your body to play all that extra hockey year after year after year. And so they might be primed for an upset in the first round. Now, if the Leafs got enough wins and if Boston fell off and Toronto ended up first in the division, I think they could win round 1 against a wild card if it was the Islanders, the Rangers, whoever. I think they could. I'm not saying that it necessarily would happen if it was the Rangers because that would go against my prediction. But yeah, I do think that Toronto's due for at least a series win. And I know how crazy that's going to be. The one thing is, if they're going to win a series, they have to do it in 4 or 5 games. No more of this Game 7 stuff. No more of this getting in your own heads. They have to win that series early. Has to be 4 or 5 games. And again, while Toronto's futility in Game 7s is well documented at this point, the reality is I think that they're good enough to win a series this year. I think they're playing really well, and so we'll see if that does happen. Number 3... I better specify which ones. Because I could have written on the board, Sabres make the playoffs, and then somebody could come back and go, well, see, they didn't. And I could say, I didn't say what year. So I will say Sabres make 2023 playoffs. They're on quite the run right now. They had that 8-game losing streak that really did hurt them, and you can't take out those losing streaks because they do tell you there's a problem. But this is a team that I think can make the playoffs. They're going to have some decisions to make with their personnel. Looking at Comrie as an example, I don't know that you can put Comrie in the net right now with this team playing as hot as they are with Luukkonen in the net, and I don't think that you can sell the fan base on Anderson being gone either. This is a franchise that really desperately needs playoffs. So if they're in a playoff spot or near a playoff spot at the trade deadline, maybe they end up being buyers and they swing big. So, if Kane or Taves end up going anywhere, I would not be entirely surprised if Buffalo was one of the front runners. I think they could make it work. I don't have Kane and Taves in the predicted because I think we all know they're leaving Chicago this year. But I wouldn't rule out Buffalo, which is weird because at any other year before now, if you told me, so could Kane or Taves end up in Buffalo at the deadline, I'd be like, why would that happen? But yeah, that's something that I think could happen. The Sabres making the playoffs in 2023. Why not Buffalo? Why not? Number 2. So in May, the people in Tempe are going to have a vote. They're going to have a vote on whether or not to build the Arizona Coyotes a new facility. But that facility and what will house that as well is going to just revolutionize Tempe in that area. I think they vote yes. I'd be very surprised if the Coyotes don't get the yes vote, and then that will silence a majority of the people who are saying move the team, move the team, move the team. Not all. There will still be people out there that say it. But at that point, it's impossible to move that team for a while. If the NHL comes through with their 30-year promise that the team won't move for 30 years, then that's it. For my lifetime at the very least, likely the rest of my lifetime, at least close to it, the Coyotes would be there. So wouldn't be a topic of discussion. I would not be doing videos on it because it's just not going to happen. That's one of the teams that was seen as vulnerable to potentially being moved. The other one, of course, Florida is the one that gets picked on the most, so people would probably circle back to Florida. But yeah, Tempe, I think, is going to vote yes. I'd be really surprised if they don't. And number one, so what's greater than an overtime goal in the playoffs? Not much. Some of my favorite memories in the Stanley Cup playoffs are overtime goals. 2011, there was an overtime goal in Game 7 between Chicago and Vancouver. We all remember Game 7 that year, too, between Boston and Montreal. Believe that went to overtime as well, because those were pretty good couple of days I had there. And of course, Pavel Bure, the overtime winner in '94, one of my favorite memories in hockey history, maybe my favorite. There's nothing greater, but just picture it: series winner in overtime. The teams come over the boards, the fans are going crazy, and then you hear the referee: plays under review for a potential offside. Remember, you don't need to challenge it in overtime. The NHL, it's an automatic review. So all of a sudden, all the confetti's got to be put aside, and we find out, yeah, that goal was offside. And then, upon the restart of the game, the other team wins. Game 7's done, and it went the other way. I think we're going to see that happen at some point, so why not predict it for this year? That a game winner, a series winner, and I'm saying Game 7 in this, but just saying a series winner, and throwing the in overtime there in parentheses. I think that could happen. And then, of course, we'll have the whole discussion start all over again of offsides and when they should be called, especially if this is a play where, say, 35, 40, 45 seconds of zone time happens before that series winner. So a team sets up, they get a good cycle going, and it's a tip in front of the net, and then that goal comes back because they were offside 40 seconds ago. Yeah, I think we're going to see that. I would put up here something about officiating and something happening that people get mad about, but we know that's going to happen anyways, so where's the fun in that prediction? So let me know in the comment section below predictions you have for the year of 2023. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.